Okay, before I start today's Retrobat Pico 8 Fantasy Console setup guide, just make sure to hit notifications, subscribe and like if you like today's video. It helps my channel out a great deal, plus it gets you up-to-date retro emulation content as I release it, which is pretty much every day. So we're looking at Pico 8 Fantasy Console today, and if you're unaware, this system is pretty damn cool for indie developers to develop almost 8-bit games, hence why it's called Pico 8 8-bit. So we're going to go to the Retrobat shortcut, open file location, and we're going to go into Bat GUI. And once Bat GUI is opened, we're going to go into System List, and at the top we're going to drop down System. And let me remind you, if you don't see this, just follow my fully comprehensive setup guide for the latest release of Retrobat. So from here we're going to just scroll down and we're going to find Pico 8. So our extensions for this is .png, which is very odd because that's actually an image file, just like JPEG, but .png. We got .p8 and also .exe. Now we got a Retroarch core, but I can't get this working. But I got a fix around this, and we're going to go through this as we carry on. So that's the extensions we need. And what we're going to do then is I'm going to leave the link in my description for this website. This is itch.io, and what I've done is downloaded the file just here, and this is a free package with a cartridge launcher in it as well. So if we just download this, and always support developers writing indie games using systems such as Pico 8 just to encourage them. I'm going to go to no thanks, just to take me to the downloads. And I'm going to download the windows.zip pack just here. That's going to download, and once you've downloaded that, you're going to end up with a zip folder. If you open up the zip folder, as I say, we got a whole pack of free games in here, and we've also got a launcher which is pemza.exe. So what I'm going to do first is just make a copy of everything in here. So we got the games and we got the cartridge launcher. And just copy this, and I'm going to go into the Retrobat directory again. So right click on the shortcut, open file location. First thing I'm going to do is just head into the ROMs folder and then look for Pico 8. And there it is. So what I'm going to do is just paste everything into this folder for now. But there's a couple of files that we don't need in here, they go elsewhere, and that's the SDL2.LL file as well as the PEMZA. So just highlight both of these, and I'm going to just drag those onto my desktop for now so they're not in the ROMs folder. And if we go into the emulators folder in Retrobat, again we're going to look for Pico 8. And here it is. So I'm going to drag pemza.exe plus that .dll file inside of Pico 8. Now what I'm going to do next is right click on pemza.exe, and I'm going to rename this. So show more options, rename, and instead of Pemza we want to rename this as Pico 8. And the reason that is because once we're inside of Retrobat, it's going to be looking for a standalone emulator called Pico 8. And with the original name of this, it doesn't establish a connection, so it's not reading it. And this is something which I've just thought of myself, and it actually works. So what we're going to do next is open up Retrobat. We got those free games in our Pico 8 ROMs folder, and we've now renamed this as Pico 8. So let's actually just double left click on this one, more info, and run. As you can see, that's working just fine. So I'm going to open up Retrobat now. And we're going to find Pico 8 up here, and here's all our games which we just downloaded. Whether or not you want to download some artwork for these, I'd imagine there's a fair few which aren't going to scrape. So anyways, if you want to attempt this, main menu, scraper, and just go to scrape now. So while this is scraping, I'm actually going to attempt to open up one of these games again. So advanced system options, emulator, And if we put this one onto auto, it's obviously going to be picking up the Retroarch core, which is Retro 8. But if I open it up this way with something like Celeste, going to end up with a blank screen. And as we can see, that scraping is now scraping some of the artwork, which is pretty cool. So we're going to just wait a bit longer for this to happen. And scraping finish, update game list. So main menu, game settings, update game list, and yes. So obviously you can go online, and like I say, most of these games are fan-made games, but there are some actually quality games within Pico 8 which people are creating. Dank Tomb, for example, this one just here was pretty cool. And Celeste is obviously a good game. Dust Child wasn't too bad. But anyways, what I'm going to do then to actually run these games and utilize that file that I just renamed is go to View Options, Advanced System Options, and once you've renamed that file to pico8.exe, make sure to pick Pico 8. Now you're just left with video settings here. So you've got force full screen, so we can try that. Most Pico 8 games, they're very small in ratio. And video mode, not going to bother with that. So first of all, let's open up Celeste. For the life of me, I can't work out how to get up on that ledge just there. So let's check out some other ones. Dank Tomb was another game which I just mentioned, which seemed pretty cool. I think you get the idea with that one. Other games we got here is Fuzz, and I believe the original of this game is called Fez. Yeah, I'll give up with that one as well. So what else have we got? Gar's Den, Get Out of the Dungeon. Yeah, pretty cool game, that one. I'm going to lastly try Little Architect. Okay, before I start today's Tick 80 setup guide for Retrobat, if you like what you see today, hit notification, subscribe and like. It really helps my channel out a great deal. Plus it gets you up-to-date retro emulation content as I release it, which is a day or even 2 or 3 times a day at the moment. So Tick 80 then, what is it? It's a fantasy console and it's very similar to Pico 8, which I actually covered the other day, and also very similar to Love, which I released earlier on as a setup guide for Retrobat. So to give you more of an in-depth idea of what this system is, this is Tick 80 tiny computer, and it's considered as a fantasy computer, so you can download the software for this to create your own games. So it's kind of like going back to the 80s at some point when you're programming BASIC or assembly language, but this is kind of like a modern version of it. You've got limitations within this system itself, so you can only work with so many pixels on screen at once, and you've only got a few channels of sound, but I think that's the appeal with Tick 80. So anyways, this is the idea of Tick 80, plus we got games. So if we go over to itch.io, where you can get all these indie games, you'll get a lot of games for Tick 80, so there's plenty here, but I do find there's some not very good games, but there is some very good games. So by taking a look, you can play a lot of these in browsers themselves, just to check them out before you download them. So what we're going to do then is Retrobat shortcut, right click on it, and we're going to go to open file location, bat GUI as always, and system list. We're going to drop down system, and from here we're going to look for Tick 80. And as we can see under extensions, we got .tick, so our games do need to be in this extension file. Now, I've tried downloading a few of these games from itch.io, but the games I've downloaded have largely been in .exe, and we're using a Retroarch core for this, which is the core Tick 80, and this particular core doesn't support .exes. So should you find any .exes, I've tried making these work within Retrobat and Retroarch, but I'm not getting anywhere. So now we understand what sort of file extensions we need, we're going to start dragging some games into the directory. So open file location, and we're going to go to ROMs. And then it's just a simple case again of just finding Tick 80, which is obviously near the bottom. Everything's in alphabetical order. Tick 80. So what I've done for this is it's a relatively simple setup guide. So I've chosen several Tick 80 games which has been created by the community. So I'm going to just drag those in here and then just boot up Retrobat. Okay, so we're inside of Retrobat. Here's Tick 80 as we can see, and here's my games. So I've not actually tried scraping any artwork for these yet, but the names themselves, they're not jumbled up with different numbers and different letters. So technically, if there's any artwork to scrape by pressing start and going to main menu, we should be able to scrape some artwork if anyone is actually uploaded any artwork to Screen Scraper for these games. But we're going to see, let this process just do its thing. Okay, scraping finish. Let's go to main menu, game settings, update, and yes. Okay, so I'm quite surprised there that we've actually got some artwork for these games, which is pretty cool, and a preview video. Okay, so what I'm going to do is just go to View Options, Advanced System Options. Now, under Emulator here, we can actually see we got BizHawk as well, but from what I've tested out so far, everything works fine with Auto, Libretto, Tick 80. So I'm going to just leave this to Auto. And we've got some shader sets to use with this as well, so what I'm going to do is just leave everything to the default settings for now and open up the first game. Okay, next up we got another cool game which I particularly like. It reminds me of Hotline Miami for some reason, so this is Amrog. Which you can see I was saying, very reminiscent to Hotline Miami or something along those lines. So what I'm going to do next is just turn these into a bit more retro looking. So Advanced System Options, I'm going to go to Shader and I'm going to turn on Curvature for this. And if you don't particularly like that portable looking Tick 80 decoration, just turn that off. So that's exactly what I'm going to do. I'm going to go to None. And game aspect ratio, I'm going to just leave this to auto. And this is Balloon Punch, so very basic game, but it's quite fun if you've got a spare few minutes. So I think you get the idea with Balloon Punch. Pretty cool, pretty addictive. Like I say, if you've got a few minutes, it's definitely worth a check out that one. Next up is kind of this RPG game. So kind of on the lines of something like Zelda, Link to the Past. So next up, we got a game called Bare Bones, and I quite like this one. It kind of reminds me of a particular game I used to play on the PS4, and I can't think for the life of me what this was on. I'm pretty sure it was on Switch as well, but this is almost like a remake of that game. If you know the game I'm talking about, comment in the comments section for me, but this is a very cool game. So yeah, very cool game this one. I really like this one a lot. Next up, we got Blast 80, which is a really fun Blast game. That one kind of reminds me of like a spin-off game of something like Missile Command on the Atari 2600. Next up, we got Tiny Dungeon. This one's interesting, but I'm not quite sure what to do, but it seems like a ZX Spectrum style game. If you're a ZX Spectrum fan or you had one back in the day, you'll see what I mean by the colours in that particular game, Tiny Dungeon. And finally, we've got almost like a remake of Wolfenstein or Wolfenstein. Check this one out. Okay, before I start today's Retrobat I Love setup guide, make sure to hit notifications, subscribe and like so you don't miss upcoming Retrobat content, as well as many other front-end emulation setup guides that I cover on my channel, as well as standalone emulation guides. So of course we're looking at Love today in Retrobat, and a lot of you's probably come across this under your ROMs folder in your Retrobat directory. You've not really looked at it, but surprisingly this is actually a really interesting system which has got some really good indie games. So you can get your games, some of them are absolutely free, other ones are demos, and some are just free altogether. So this is itch.io, and I particularly like this website for modern Commodore 64 games. It's a really great website. So let's just download a game to begin with. I've actually played a couple of these games today before doing this setup guide. And yeah, if you like platformers, classic old school style platformers, then this is a really good engine to be using. So just take a look through this website, and for example, I'm going to just download this game just here, which is Slugcaster. Not one I played, but we can download just here, and obviously we're going to want the Windows version. And if I come back out there, I'm going to just download a couple more just so you can have a look at the gameplay yourself and see what you think. So one of them I did briefly play earlier on was this game just here, MetaNet Hunter G4. So as you can see, it's got an OG Game Boy aesthetic about it. This is a demo version, so I'm going to download this one as well. And if we just go down to download demo, and obviously we want this on Windows again, and that's downloaded. And the other one I was playing was a Fox game, and that seemed pretty cool as well, but I can't seem to... There it is, right in front of me, Fox Plus Deluxe. So again, we got another demo here, but it's fully playable up to a certain point, obviously. So I'm going to download the Windows version of this again. Now, of course, you can get these games from anywhere pretty much. If you just type into your search engine, Love Games, then you'll probably get lots of different websites, but I'm just using itch.io. So I'm going to download the Windows demo version just here. Now, whilst these games are downloading, what I'm going to do is just go to the Retrobat shortcut, open file location, bat GUI. And for those that watches every one of my Retrobat setup guides, you probably get sick at this point, but I'm going to say if you can't drop down the system just here, check out my fully comprehensive guide and that will sort you out just there. But once you do see this, and hopefully you do see this drop down, we're going to find Love. And under extensions, this is our file extensions for this particular system. So .zip, .7zip, .lua, .love, .exe. Now I'm predominantly working with .exes just here from the games that I've downloaded. And as we can see here, under cores libretro, we don't actually have a Retroarch core for this. So once we're in Retrobat, we're going to need to download the emulator itself. So if we come out of here and out of bat GUI, I'm going to just open up my ROMs folder and just find Love, and there it is. So here's my 3 games I've just downloaded from itch.io. If I just open up the first one, we got Slugcaster Windows just here, and as we can see, we got a exe file which BatGUI just recommended us to. We've also got a slugcaster.exe just here. So what I'm going to do with this is just drag this out of the zip folder. And I'm also going to open up this Game Boy style game, and I'm going to create a new folder for this one, because once we open this in a zip folder, if we drag these contents in all together, when we open up Retrobat, you're going to have files everywhere. So what I tend to do with this system is create a new folder and just call this the name of the game, which is, say, MetaNet Hunter G4. And then just drag the contents into that folder that you just made. And finally, we got this Fox game, which is pretty fun from what I played earlier on. And again, for this one, because we go into the zip folder and it doesn't have a subfolder inside, I'm going to just create a new folder for this and call it Fox Flush. And this is the deluxe version. And just drag those contents into that new folder. So once you've done this, just delete those zip files, because we've obviously taken the contents outside. We don't need those anymore. And what I'm going to do is drag all 3 of these games into that Love folder within ROM's Retrobat directory. So that's it. So we're going to open up Retrobat. Okay, and you should see Love come up within Retrobat. If we just go in here, then what I'm going to do is just open up one of the games, and that's going to prompt us to... So Emulator Love is not installed. Install now, yes. So here we go. So most of these Love games, they're going to boot up in a window mode, but these are kind of going to work in the same way PC games are going to work. So normally, if we go to the options when you pause one of these games, So as you can see, this one doesn't have a full screen option. So if we come back out, I'm going to open up pause again. In some of these games come up with a little prompt at the bottom where it says pressing a particular button on your controller will put this into full screen mode. And there we go. So for this, I'm using my Google Stadia button, and that's going to bring us into full screen mode. And there you go. So that's Fox Plus Deluxe, and as you can see, that's pretty cool. So I'm going to attempt to scrape some artwork. So main menu, scraper, and scrape now. So depending if anyone's updated screen scraper with artwork for some of these games, it's very unlikely we're actually going to get some artwork, but we'll try. So no, nothing there. So next up what I'm going to show you is this Game Boy inspired game. as you can see, that's really cool. So there are some love games which you won't be able to play by controller, as they've not been programmed for that function, such as this one I was just playing. Only seems to respond correctly with my keyboard. And finally, I'm going to show you Slugcaster. Okay, before I start today's Retrobat and low-res NX setup guide, just make sure to hit notification, subscribe, and you like if you like today's video. It will keep you up to date with the latest retro emulation content that I've got, plus it helps my channel out a lot. So we're looking at a really bizarre system today, running this through Retrobat, which is of course low-res NX. A lot of you might be thinking, why are you doing low-res NX? Why aren't you doing Technoparrot or PlayStation 3? The answer is, I've done all this and it's actually in my playlist. So literally these days I'm left with these obscure little systems such as this one. This one's considered as a fantasy console, and if you're into fantasy consoles, I've also done the fantasy console Love, Tick 80 and Piku 8. So what we're going to do first is let's just give you a little bit of background information for low-res NX. So like I say, it's considered a fantasy console and it's actually running from BASIC, and this is the second generation of BASIC. So for those of you out there who might have done a bit of coding back in the C64, ZX Spectrum or Amstrad or even MSX days, this will be very nostalgic. So this is predominantly 8-bit games. So if you want to do a bit of programming yourself, this is where you can grab this from, and I'll leave the link in my description. Now game-wise, you can go to itch.io to grab some games. There's only actually a few on there admittedly, but the best place to get these games from is from this website just here. And again, I'll leave the link in my description. So to download one of these games, literally just left click on it, and if you just scroll down, you'll find a .nx file. If you just left click on that, and if you fancy playing some NX games, it's just simply a case of going to this website and just playing it from there. So that's about it. So let's look at getting you set up then. So if we go to the Retrobat shortcut then and open file location, we are going to go straight to Bat GUI. As I'm always going to suggest, it's your greatest tool you've got in Retrobat. And we're going to go to system list, and at the top you should see system. If you don't see this, please follow my comprehensive setup guide. It's quite likely you're missing a couple of installation packages when you set up Retrobat. So we're going to scroll down once you can see this, and hopefully you can, and we are going to find low-res NX, and just here we are looking for .nx extensions. So just a minute ago I showed you that website, and of course those games are with the .nx file extension, and we've only got one Retroarch libretto core to use for this system. We don't have an emulator we can download through Retrobat. It's literally running off of Retroarch, which is low-res NX. So for this setup guide, and to give you a little bit of a glimpse what low-res NX can offer, I've got a few games, and what I'm going to do is just go to my ROMs folder, and we're going to find low-res NX just here. And for those of you looking forward to the new launch of Retrobat 6, I'm personally hoping that's going to be released this year, and as soon as it does, of course I'm going to be doing another new fully comprehensive setup guide. So we're going to find low-res NX, and here it is. So I've got a few games like I said, and I'm going to just drag those .nx games into that ROMs folder, and then from here we can just boot up Retrobat. Okay, so we're now inside Retrobat, and you should be able to see a low-res NX. And for those of you waiting for a Pinball FX2, then you're going to have to wait a little bit longer, I'm afraid. But for now, I have got a couple of virtual pinball systems in my Retrobat playlist. So low-res NX, and let's try and grab some artwork for this. So main menu, scraper, and systems included. And right, okay, so it looks like we don't actually have an option for low-res artwork on this, but we're going to try and scrape this anyway. So scraper again, scrape now. Yeah, nothing. Okay, so what we're going to do then is just literally go to view options by pressing select, advanced system options, and we're going to have the main options just here to manipulate the visuals. So let's actually boot up a game first with default settings. So one of my favorites is Low Res Galaxy 2. So open this up. So pretty basic stuff, but just bear in mind most of these games are less than 30 kilobyte in size. As we know, low-res NX is pretty much done through basic programming, so not even assembly language, and the music itself is very reminiscent of the SID chip from the C64 too. So we got another game here to take a look at, Gut Runner. Again, it's a very basic game, but for those people out there that loves 8-bit games, this is going to be right up your street. Before I start this one, I'm going to go to View Options, Advanced System Options, and under Shaders, I'm going to just check out Curvature. I really like this shader set. And Decorations, we've got no official decorations for low-res NX, but if we want to, we can just go and use this one's, for example, Arcade 1980s. Let's just spunk this up. And if we're going to use decorations, just make sure that it's on 4:3 aspect ratio, or just leave it to auto. Integer scaling, we're going to turn that on, or just leave it to auto. That's going to clean up pixelation. But the point of low-res NX is that nostalgic pixelated look, so leave that up to you. Vertical sync, yes, I don't think there's going to be much screen tear, to be fair, on these games. Visual rendering, video filters, I'm going to put something like upscale 1.5 on. I'm going to leave it at this because I've just boosted this up enough. So let's go for a Gut Runner. It's a very charming game, that one. So actually those visual improvements actually makes it look pretty retro to me. Next up, in the last one I got, is Rend the Dark 2. This one's pretty cool. Okay, before I start today's Retrobat in UzeBox or UzeBox setup guide, just make sure to hit notifications, subscribe and like if you like today's video. It really helps my channel out a great deal. Plus you get up-to-date retro emulation content as I release it. So we're looking at UzeBox then today, or UzeBox. I'm not sure how that's pronounced, to be honest. This is going to be my fourth video today. Now my ex, bless her little socks, would say I was quite manic at this point for uploading 4 videos. But that's another story. So what we're going to do then is take a look at UzeBox itself, and I'm going to refer to this as UzeBox from now on. So you would have came across this folder in your ROMs folder in Retrobat, and you're probably wondering what this is. So UzeBox itself is a little device, and it's pretty much open source system, and programmers are programming tiny little games for like little 8-bit games, so very similar to the last few fantasy consoles that I've released setup guides for. So I'll leave this link in my description, and the device itself is a cute little Raspberry Pi looking system, as you can see here. So it's got a couple of ports on there for joysticks. They look like 9-pin joysticks, an SD card. So technically it looks a lot like something like a Raspberry Pi, but this is designed strictly for these old retro games, or shall I say new retro games. So anyways, to get your games, these are predominantly going to be free, and I'm going to leave this link in my description as well. And you can see the type of games we got here. So like I say, a lot like 8-bit games, maybe a little bit more polished, and in some cases almost 16-bit. So what we're going to do is head over to the Retrobat shortcut, open file location and back GUI. And I'm sure at this point people watching me do this bit are getting sick of this, but I'm going to do it just for new viewers to my channel. We're going to open system list, and let me just sort this out, and we're going to go to system, and from system we're going to just drop this down until we find that UzeBox. And let me just remind you again, if you don't see this drop down just here, check out my main comprehensive guides to set Retrobat up. It's likely you're missing a couple of installation files. So then for our game extensions, we need .uze files, and we got no emulator to download in Retrobat for this system. We're going to be using a Retroarch libretto core, which is UzeM. Now if we go back to the website, you'll notice that the file names on most of these are what it's asking for, .uze or uze. So plenty of games there, like I say. I've downloaded a hell of a lot of these games into a folder which is on my desktop, and here they are. So lots of games there, and the pack I downloaded also came with some .zip files, and inside of these are .bins. Now it's very unlikely these are going to work, as it's just asking for .uze files. But I'm going to copy all of these, and Control and A to highlight everything, and right click and copy. And if I go back into that Retrobat directory, open file location, I'm going to go to ROMs, and just scroll down until we get to UzeBox, and here we go. So just paste all of those inside of there, and there they are. So let's open up Retrobat now. Okie dokes. Now, if you've done this correctly, we got a little picture of the UzeBox itself, and we got the UzeBox logo up here. Let's just quickly see if we can scrape some artwork. So press start, main menu, scraper, and scrape now. So it's quite unlikely a lot of these aren't going to scrape, but we're going to see. Sometimes you get lucky with these really obscure games. I found lately that when I was doing my virtual console or fantasy console setup guides, such as Pico 8, it was actually scraping more of those games than I gave it credit for, so we're going to see. And scrape and finish, so update game list to apply changes. So main menu by pressing start, game settings, update game list, and yes. And here we go. So we got a lot scraped and some aren't. It looks a little bit bland, so I'm going to just change the way this looks. So if I go to main menu, user interface settings, theme configuration. If I go to game list view style, I'm going to change this to detailed and see if this makes any difference. So yeah, that's a little bit better. So as we can see, we got artwork for some of them, but we don't have any videos, but it doesn't really matter. So what I'm going to do is go to View Options by pressing Select, Advanced System Options, Emulator. Now, technically, we can actually use BizHawk. In BizHawk itself, it's kind of like a front end, which I actually did a setup guide outside of Retrobat because I also do setup guides other than Retrobat. But we can use that in here. What I'm going to do is just do what it says in Batch UI and just use the Retroarch core here. So leave it to auto. And we got all the regular options, shader sets, decorations, and so on. But I'm going to boot up a game now, and let's go for a classic like Arkanoid. So as you can see, that's the general style and aesthetic of what UzeBox games are going to look like. I'm going to pick something else randomly. Let's try out BC Dash. Yeah, I'm not quite sure what that game was about, but yeah, it looked okay. That's all I'm going to say for that one. Okay, so we got a remake of the 1981 classic arcade game Donkey Kong, as it says. Most people watching this video will probably know what the original looked like, so let's check this one out. Yeah. What else have we got? So we got Dr. Mario. Obviously, this was a Nintendo NES game and a Game Boy game. We got anything interesting? What's Final Blood? Right, so I couldn't draw any blood on there, let alone Final Blood, so I'm not sure what that game's about. And we got a game here called Ghosty Ghost. This looks pretty interesting. Clearly a Flappy Bird remake or clone of some sort. Let's try out Happy Easter. So that's Buster from Tiny Toon Adventures, and that was an awesome cartoon in the 90s. I used to watch that. And also some good Tiny Toon games too. And it looks like we got a clone there of Jupiter Lander or Lunar Lander. So let's check this out. So I'm going to give up with that one, but if you like playing that type of game, physics-based games like that, then you've got a nice cheerful little jolly tune by Elton John, Rocket Man in the background of that, if you select the music to be on. I got Load Runner, which is obviously a very old-school classic game. Yeah, I'm gonna just skip up with that one. And we've also got Snakes, so looks like this should be like a Nokia 3310 game. Too slow for me, that version. And I'm going to check out another game. Obviously, we've got Tetris here. I don't really fancy playing that. I think I played enough of that game as a kid. I'm just sick to death of Tetris at this point. Let's just check out Zombinator. Okay, before I start today's Retrobat and Wasm 4 setup guide, just make sure to hit notifications, subscribe and like if you like today's video. It gets you up-to-date retro content, emulation content that is, as well as helping my channel out a great deal for doing so. So we're looking at Wasm 4 today, so it's another fantasy console, and I've already covered several of these fantasy consoles within Retrobat, such as Piku 8, Tick 80, and a couple of more, including Love. So let's firstly take a look what Wasm is. I'll leave the links in my description for these websites. So just like the other fantasy consoles I've covered recently for Retrobat, Wasm 4, like I say, is pretty much a WebAssembly language for developing little 8-bit games-esque. And I'm going to say esque because some of these games do look very much like 8-bit games. So this is where you can learn about Wasm 4 if you wish to and start programming. And I've also going to leave a link in my description for itch.io and specifically this search category, which is for Wasm 4 games. So very similar to other fantasy consoles then, graphically. And we've got lots of games here, but before we start downloading anything, we need to know what type of file extensions we need for Wasm 4 in Retrobat. So it's going to be a case of going to the Retrobat shortcut, open file location, and we're going to open up BatGUI. And if we open up system list and just open up system just here, whoops, ES systems, and if we open up system just here, make sure, unlike what I've just done, Emulation system file needs to be on ES_systems, otherwise you'll just end up with one system like you just seen. So what we're going to do is just scroll down until we find Wasm 4. And here's Wasm 4. Now let me just remind you, if you don't see that scroll down list which I've just gone through, make sure you watch my fully comprehensive Retrobat setup guide. It's quite literally, you're missing a couple of installation files whilst installing Retrobat, but that setup guide there will sort that out for you. So we are looking for .wasm file extensions for our games, and we can also see under cores libretro, Retroarch is going to be supporting this with its own core, which is Wasm 4. So if you're new to Retrobat, Retroarch runs in the background of Retrobat, and this is the actual emulator, or rather core, that it uses to power these Wasm 4 games. So now we know that we need .wasms. What we're going to do is head back over to itch.io, and I'm randomly going to select some games just to test out and show you how this works. So we got plenty of games just here to test out if you're into this type of system. So let's check out .carlos. And if we scroll through here, we're going to find most of these games you can download in the actual file extension that Retroarch or Retrobat is looking for. And if we scroll up, most of these games you can actually play them, just test them out. So what I'm going to do is just download that. As you can see, it's now downloaded and it's .wasm file extension. And punch them up, whatever this game is about. So downloads now. No thanks, just take me to the downloads. And we want to download the .wasms. Like I say, this is the file extensions that we need. And some of these games actually, from what I've just been looking at, don't actually have download files. In that case, it's just really a simple case of going on Google and just typing in Wasm 4 download games or something along those lines. And let's check Spunky out. Maybe Spunky has got a download, which it does. Cool. So we got 3 games then for this. So if I just head over to my downloads folder, and from my downloads folder, I'm going to just copy those into my Retrobat ROMs directory. And obviously we're looking for the Wasm 4 folder just here. And here we go, Wasm 4. So I'm just going to paste those few games inside of there. And that's about it. So let's open up Retrobat. Okie doke, so let me just remind you, if you are new to my channel, I've got over 100 setup guides for Retrobat in actually Adobe Flash Player. It was a very popular setup guide which I uploaded a couple of days ago, well worth checking that setup guide out. So we're going to go to Wasm 4 then, which is now appeared, and here's the games. I'm going to just check out if I can get some artwork for these or preview videos. So main menu, scraper and scrape now. Now, sometimes with these really obscure systems, you get lucky with artwork being scraped, and sometimes you'll end up with nothing at all. So it's a little bit of a situation where you're either lucky or you're not so lucky. And while this is downloading, if I press select and go to advanced system options, we'll find it's literally just that Retroarch core. So we don't have an option here to change emulators. It is what it is. But our artwork is now scraped, so if I go to main menu, game settings, update game list and press on yes. So it's scraped a couple of games, and the game which is called Cart, which to be fair, the game isn't called Cart, so just rename files which download like that. So what we're going to do is just boot up our first game, which is Spunky. So oddly addictive, good old Spunky. So what we're going to do, I'm going to just go to view options by pressing select, advanced system options, and if I go to shader set, we got a range of different shaders here to use. I always recommend curvature shader because it gives us a CRT and slight scanline effect. So let's just check out curvature. And under decorations, we've got no decoration which is going to obscure those black bars on the side of the screen. But we can also use one of these, such as Ambience Night. We can check this one out. If you're going to be using a decoration, also make sure that game aspect ratio is set to auto, which is going to auto select 4:3. If you use one of these decorations and go for something like a full size screen or even core provided, it will chop off a lot of your gameplay image. So just make sure auto or 4:3 is selected. Integer scale, this is obviously going to clean up a bit of the pixelation, but let's just remember that wasn't for the part of the charm of these games is the pixelation. Vertical sync, obviously that's going to take away screen tear, but again, I don't really think it's going to apply much of these games. And if we go down to visual rendering, we got video filters. And again, we can apply a filter to this, such as scan lines, but the shader I've just used has already got a scanline effect implemented into that, so it doesn't really matter. And smooth games by linear filtering, by default, this is going to be on auto. So let's just take a look at the game again with the settings applied. So this time, let's go for punch up. So to be fair, I think without the shader placed on those, it kind of looks better. So advanced system options, shader set, and I'm actually going to go to auto. And I'm also going to change decorations on this. I didn't quite like the effects that was given. I'm going to put ambience game room on and go back into the game again. So not a bad game, just a nice little couple of minute time breaker if you're a little bit bored. Finally, we got this very mysterious cart game. Let's just check this one out, see what this is like.